Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome once again to Global Atheist News Review. This is where, unlike the news itself, which is meant to be dispassionate, impartial delivery of facts, this is where we get to express our views on the news. Now, our panel today consists of Dread Pirate from Canada. Welcome back.
Arr!
We also have Frank Lovell from Kentucky. Welcome, Frank. Esther, the Afro-humanist from the UK Midlands. Welcome, Esther. Nice to see you back.
Okay.
And some other people may join us a bit later, but we will proceed from now. Now, as you know, quite a lot of news items hang around in the news for a long time, for several weeks. They're ongoing, they're developing. And so what we have to do is completely update the developments as time goes by. So the first item that I'd like you to respond to began last week. It concerns the World Council of Churches, which is under pressure to oust the Russian Orthodox Church from its ranks because detractors argue that the church's leader, Patriarch Kirill, invalidated its membership by backing the Russian invasion of Ukraine and involving the church in the global political machinations of President Putin. So what do you think about that?
Seems reasonable to me. Kick him out.
Yeah, absolutely. So the religious leaders from around the world, including the former Archbishop of Canterbury and various other religious leaders, Franciscan friars and Greek Orthodox Church archbishops and delegates from the London Synagogue and Muslim and Hindu Buddhist leaders have been traveling to Ukraine to demonstrate solidarity and friendship with those affected by the war. Now, this is a nice gesture, but what do you think?
Yeah. It's just a demonstration that this is really all politics. Like anything, it's the people that have a belief in God. Do they really care? Does it affect their faith when these church leaders are just infighting amongst themselves about how they should, you know, uh, relate to these events? I don't know. It seems a little banal.
Do you think
For
it's going
me,
to have
for
any
me,
effect, Esther?
um, I was just going to say that when religious people go on to help in time of disaster, war, famine, all these things, at what cost is this help coming to the people there? On the one hand, they offer you relief and help, but then on the other hand, they're trying to proselytize to you. They're trying to recruit you
Mm-hmm.
into the religion. They're
Yes,
they're they're also threatening you with hell, right?
yes,
So that kind of help and relief, what's the what's the bargaining tool
yeah,
at the end of it? I would
yes.
rather you help with nothing attached to it. Someone was telling me just today, having a conversation with someone, missionaries coming over to Africa, telling them that they should get rid of the juju and the deities they worship there because Jesus will save them. And without Jesus, they're going to go to hell
Mm,
without Jesus. So they've got to give up their deities
yeah.
to take on Jesus. I mean, at what cost is this help coming to these people?
Mm-hmm.
They have an ulterior motive, don't they?
Yes,
It's
That's the
absolutely.
thing.
poisoned chalice. They're not just they're not just trying to go and generously help. It's not a humanitarian mission. It's a let's see who we can recruit mission.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, it speaks to these church leaders trying to play their political games in amongst themselves. It renders the whole thing absolutely ridiculous, in my view.
Yeah. Well, the Pope has been on about it too.
Of course.
Yeah, it's his day, isn't it? Easter Sunday,
Yeah, it is.
when crucifixion rears its presence in the news. And so he's been reminding Christians in St. Peter's Square. Of course, he gets about, 60,000 people listening to him. And he says that they should be celebrating the victory of the Lord Jesus Christ over sin and death. And he claims that Christ died so that life, love, and peace might reign. Let the weapons be put down, he says. Let the Easter truce begin.
Right. The Easter truce, right.
Wait, did he say, let the weapons be put down? But Jesus told the disciples to go buy weapons. In Luke 22, you see the scripture where Jesus said to the disciples, give up your clothes, give up your bags, and give up the things you've got, and go and buy swords. And they went, bought the sword, they bought the first one, they bought the second one. So Jesus, we have two now. And Jesus says, yeah, that's good. That's good. You've got two swords. And then a few verses later, the one who would betray Jesus comes along and is betrayed. And the disciples then use the sword to cut off the ear of someone. And Jesus is saying, oh, no, you shouldn't cut off the ear. Hang on, Jesus. You asked them to go take on these weapons. You specifically told them to go buy it. And you're supposed to be the all-knowing. How didn't you know that this sword was going to be used to cut off? And then guess what Jesus does? He then comes along and does the patchwork, patch the ear back in. On the one hand, they tell you,
I wonder if there was a scar.
Listen, I don't. You know what? Listen, whether Jesus put the ear back, he would have felt the pain. The one whose ear was cut off.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't take away from the pain he would have felt.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So
that's PTSD right there.
According to the legend, Jesus died for my sins, for our sins.
The original sin.
And he came back to life only 2 days later. So what I'm worried about is, have my sins been properly died for?
Right. And I keep.
What sin?
I may require 3 days of hell stay for Jesus to forgive my sins.
Frank, you were going to say.
Well, I've been told many times that Jesus made a great sacrifice for my soul. And I can't figure out what that sacrifice is. I mean, he died and he was buried for 3 days and suffered terribly before that, but now he lives in paradise forever and ever, in joy and peace. And
he's omnipotent.
Man, if I could save the world by going through that, and my result was, the rest of time in heaven, healing my wounds, why jump at the chance?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the great sacrifice.
Right.
It's a cheap price to pay, really, isn't it? All that he did was he had a lost weekend, and how many of us haven't had that when we were students drinking?
I think the question is, what exactly did he come to save us from? That we are sinners. How are we sinners? I'm not a sinner. We are not sinners. And why does religion get to tell us that we're sinners? Why does religion get to condemn us and tell us that for the purpose of these sins? And when you think about the Christian doctrine, they talk about the sin of Adam and Eve, original sin. I mean, two people ate a fruit, and so that equates to someone coming to die,
right?
For the sole purpose of two people eating a fruit. the punishment doesn't the crime and the punishment,
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
they just don't fit.
Eternal fire and brimstone as punishment for scrumping.
Well, and if I remember correctly, their sin was eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil,
Right.
and for
Yes.
that they're being punished.
Right.
They
Yes.
did it before they knew the meaning
Right.
of good
Of
and
good and
evil.
evil. Exactly.
I just don't get it.
No.
I mean, what they're saying is it's better to be ignorant than knowledgeable.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
I like your equating it with scrumping, though, Dred. I'm not sure whether that's a word that has travelled to America, though. Do you have scrumping in America, Frank?
No, but we will now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just actually I finished reading Richard Dawkins' a brief candle in the dark, which is the second part of
Yes.
his autobiography, and he
Yes.
relates a little story right towards the end about two people having this conversation about the banality of original sin and the idea of God sacrificing himself to himself for the crime that he imposed on whatever. And scrumping was that's exactly how he put it, is like eternal
Yeah.
hell for
Yeah.
scrumping.
Yeah. Well, it
I
is
was-
for those people who don't know the word scrumping. It's a very minor crime of stealing somebody else's apples off their tree, for example. Fruit,
I
it's
will,
fruit,
I'm
fruit
going to
theft.
spread the word. I will spread the
theft.
word here in
Yes.
the States. So.
So, moving on to a long-running English story, you remember that Sir David Ames MP was stabbed more than 20 times back in October last year and died as a result. And the murderer was captured, Ali Harbi Ali, and he's now been brought to court. And believe it or not, he was speaking to his sister on his phone and claiming, and it's all recorded, of course, by the phone system, claiming that he'd killed him as though it was an achievement. But since then, of course, he's been denying the charges and claiming that it wasn't murder because he legitimately targeted the MP because he voted for airstrikes on Syria, which, of course, was being defended by the Islamic State at the time. So it was counter to his principles. Anyway, he wanted to be shot by the police.
Right.
Unfortunately for him, he was arrested by two plainclothes police officers who were only armed with an incapacitant spray and batons. So that didn't meet his requirements. So when they accosted him, he dropped his knife. Now, this has got to the stage where the jury has sentenced. Well, they've judged him, and the court has sentenced him, and so he's now going to be locked up for. It only took them 18 minutes to convict him, and he's going to be locked up for a very long time. Meanwhile, the police, who very bravely tackled him when he was armed with a knife, have been given awards. They've been given Essex Police's highest accolade, the Merit Star, for their bravery. So what do you say? What do you think about this? Is this justice?
Phew, justice. Well, I mean, it's justice insofar as that's the way this system works. I mean, had he been turned free or given a lesser charge of manslaughter or third-degree murder or something, that wouldn't have been too just. But if he's gotten the highest, if he's receiving punishment for the highest charge that he could be charged with, then that's, I think, as just as is possible under the circumstances.
Is there an end to his imprisonment, or is it? I mean, is it a life sentence or just a long time?
I don't know how long the sentence is. All I know
I
at the
mean,
moment.
here in the UK, they've sentenced you to life, but then you might do just 20 something odd years.
Hmm.
Okay.
But it's they would usually say life sentence, but a minimum
Yeah.
or maximum of how many years to be served. So he could be out in 20 something odd years, depending on his behavior while he's
Well,
there.
Yeah.
now here in the States, we have life without parole or life
Mm,
with chance of
Hmm.
parole. So I guess
Yeah. Incidentally, and this has only sort of become public knowledge today, I think, he was known to the police. He'd been he'd been recognised as a schoolboy as likely to be susceptible to what do they call it? Radicalization. His
Hmm.
teacher referred him to the authorities, and they investigated him and decided he wasn't a threat. But we have something over here called Prevent, which is a sort of uh, can you think of it as that program that's supposed to persuade you not to be homosexual? What do you call that?
Oh, right.
Conversion
yeah,
therapy.
Conversion therapy.
yeah,
Yeah,
conversion
we have
therapy.
Prevent is a sort of conversion therapy to de-radicalize people. So it's working on their brains, and unfortunately, it's not thoroughly effective.
No,
So,
It's
just like
not.
conversion therapy isn't.
right.
indeed,
No.
yeah. So he didn't get that,
Hmm.
but even I think only about 80% of people who do go to the Prevent program are actually de-radicalized, and the rest go on and commit most of the offences that are happening here. Most of the murders many of the murders that are happening here have been performed
Yeah.
by escapees, failures
You know,
of the.
if I may speak to that, I know I go on about this all the time. It's not about trying to undo something. All right, this conversion therapy is like trying to undo something, to de-radicalize or de-homosexualize or
Hmm,
de-whatever.
hmm,
What what really, in order to help people gain a better appreciation of, the validity of what they think, you have to teach these critical thinking skills. That ultimately is
yes,
what is going to really temper people's radical ideas,
yes.
is to have the tools and the skills and then gain the experience to examine oneself in order
Hmm,
to gauge and evaluate and bring evidence to substantiate what you have to think about in order to temper these radical ideas out. It's not about undoing something. It's about actually giving you the skill set and the tools necessary to approach this properly.
yes. To make
I think
an informed decision about what you should believe. Yes. Esther.
I think that these lone wolves that end up getting radicalized, they're dangerous in my opinion, because it's a different thing to get them all together in a group, right, and radicalize them. But it's this one person who watches a video, starts to get these
Ah,
ideas, right?
yeah.
It's
Mm,
lone wolves. Because
yes.
I listen, I don't think I can 100% blame the police, because they probably looked at him as a young lad, hasn't
Mm,
got much affiliations with different.
mm,
He probably didn't fit the criteria of
mm,
a terrorist. There
mm.
was another one. Did you guys hear about the one who left the UK and went off to Texas? And um, he he went into a temple and held. I think he was a gun or something. I don't know what he got, and just held hostage rabbi and a few
Yes.
people in the temple. Is this this lone people just going
Mm,
and doing? And I think that these sects that do this, they they actually prey on these minds that are easily
Yeah.
that can easily be gotten a
Manipulated.
hold
Yeah,
of.
for sure.
Yeah, manipulated. So
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you if you notice that your loved one or someone you know is slowly starting to be radicalized, what do you do then? Do you
Mm.
say something? Do you act? Do you it must be a really hard call,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think.
These days, they can be in their bedroom with an iPad or tablet of some sort, picking up all this stuff. And you're right, I remember that guy because he was radicalized in this country on his own, not part of a group, flew over to America, picked up and bought a gun at the local gun shop, which is pretty easy to do, and went to look for somewhere to shoot up and found this temple, didn't he?
Yes.
Mm, a real nutter. Yeah. So the really sad news today is about Mubarak Bala, the president of the Humanist Association of Nigeria, who was arrested 2 years ago because he'd published some stuff on Facebook that they deemed to be blasphemous against Muhammad. And so he was a resident of the Kaduna state of Nigeria, one of the northern states, where Sharia law is fairly predominant, although this is unconstitutional in Nigeria because the constitution was set up back in the days of independence when it was specified that the government and the authorities should not support any religion. And but they ignore that in Kaduna, and worse in a more northern state still called Kano, or I'm not sure I'm
Kano.
pronouncing it. Kano.
Kano.
Yes, my Nigerian pronunciation is not very good. Anyway, that poor guy has been illegally detained for the last 2 years without being given access to lawyers or his family, and without them being allowed to know where he is or whether he's even still alive. And Atheist Alliance International, who I used to work for a couple of years ago, have been supporting his wife and their young child in all the time that he's been unable to support them himself. Well, he was finally taken to court in the capital of Abuja, and mysteriously he changed his plea to guilty, to the amazement of his lawyers. They think that he may have seen the guilty plea as a way to end his case, because obviously it's been dragging on and he would like it to terminate in some way. But the result of that was he was sentenced to 24
24 years.
years in prison. What do you think about that?
It's crushing.
It's I'm half Nigerian, so I can speak on this particular issue. The condition. Have you, by any chance, seen what the condition of jail looks like in Nigeria?
Oh,
It is horrendous. It's not somewhere even your enemy, you would not want them to go there. And in Mubarak's case, his offense is such that he lives in a predominantly Muslim area, so it's not enough to just say, "Oh, we sentence you to 24 years." There's still some people who would be upset that you dare say this about our Muhammad, and so they could still there's still a threat. The word on the street is that we really need to be thankful that they did not go for the death sentence. That if they had pursued, I think maybe because he pled guilty, maybe,
Yes.
but that the ultimate, because don't forget, when he renounced Islam, he was first taken to a mental health facility because they thought that he had lost his mind. He was injected with so many drugs and things and needles and all these things put inside of him, because they thought that he had lost it altogether. And so 24 years, I still think there's still an active threat on his life.
Yes.
And I just I don't know where one begins with this, but he does not deserve to be there. If he
No.
was in the US or in the UK or any other parts of it, he would be a free man right now. Because
It's not
who
the
does
crime.
blasphemy? Who blasphemy is such a who gets hurt when you blaspheme? I don't know. But
Exactly.
yeah.
So I don't know if 24 years in prison is a consolation to the death penalty,
Hmm.
right? Because going through 24 years of hell, man, I don't know if there was any opportunity to help this gentleman through some worldwide effort, I'd be absolutely all behind it. But I don't know if that's even an opportunity in Nigeria, given the state of the government and whether or not there's any opportunity for some kind of a reprieve or revisiting the case. If not, I welcome the death sentence
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. Ah,
It's just
well,
Because he's got a young child and a young
yeah.
wife.
Yes.
I don't know if
yeah,
Yes.
no, it's horrible.
I did an interview with her. Well, I was the producer actually, and Bill Flavel was the interlocutor, and she was crying out for news of her husband, who she didn't know at the time whether he was alive or dead. And of course, you could say that being in prison is actually safer for him than being on the streets in Kaduna or Kano,
Canon.
because he would probably be stoned to death if he was
Yes.
out there.
So there was a case before Mubarak. I think this young boy, he was about 10 or 12 when
Yes,
this thing happened, when
yes,
he
yes.
said something about Muhammad, and he was sentenced to, I think, 10
In the
years behind
playground.
bars.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
playground. But
yeah,
that appeal did work because there was
it
such an
did work.
international outcry that he was released. Yes,
Yes,
can't
it did
remember his
work.
name. I'll put
And
his name in the details.
Well, is
he
there
was
is there
he
a
was he was this young boy was the case was thrown out eventually,
Yes,
but the people in the community said, if you release him to us, if he comes back to the community, we
yeah,
will take law into our hands and deal with him. So anyway, right now as we speak, he's been granted amnesty to an unknown country, and they're going to make sure he goes to university. They're going to give him scholarship and all these
yes,
things, him and his family, because there was a threat still. Even though the
yes,
case was thrown out of court, they were still going to try and do something to this young boy. So
yes,
I think in Mubarak's case, there's still hope for an appeal. And
yes.
I think the more people cry out, the more people come together and do something. They might just I don't know.
so he is the president of the Humanist Association in Nigeria. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes,
So
yes,
yes.
that's
what
right.
is the Humanist Association in Nigeria doing about it? Has a petition started? Has like what kind of action is being taken right now amongst global
Well,
humanist
yeah,
associations that we can actually get started and get this ball rolling?
it's been rolling, I'm afraid, for a couple of years, Dread, with no effect really.
Well, but now this is a turning point, right? Where
Hopefully.
the sentences happened and
Mm,
grave and dire circumstances are afoot
yes.
for
Well, it
that.
has been, his detention and treatment has been condemned by Humanist UK and UN human rights experts. And the worry is, you see, what we still have is Leo Igwe, who is a Nigerian associate and a lawyer to boot of Mubarak. And he was actually the founder of the Humanist Association of Nigeria. And he's said Unfortunately, this is a very sad day for humanism and for human rights. The implication is not good for the humanist movement because it means that humanists will be, by implication, criminal
Right.
because they're not Muslims.
Yeah.
But in what way did he blaspheme? Just by not being a Muslim there? I don't understand. I mean,
He posted some stuff on Facebook. I can't remember the words, but it was deemed to be blasphemous towards Muhammad. You mustn't do that. So of course,
you might hurt Muhammad's feelings.
yes. Well,
I think he compared Muhammad to a prophet in Nigeria, and said there was no difference between, no, it was Muhammad and this prophet who's dead now.
TB Joshua.
Compared them to
TB
Yes.
Joshua.
yes.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a lot needs to be done to help Nigeria recover from this. Anyway, moving on to India, because a similar sort of thing has been going on over there. There's a writer. Now, bear with me, because his name is Kumvi Virabhadrapa. I said it.
Not bad.
You did good. You did well.
He has recently spoken against communal divisiveness and hatred because, as you know, since the election of what's his name, Modi, the current premier of India, the Hindutva have got very aggressive, and they persecute Muslims. So there's all sorts of communal divisiveness going on. So this poor guy, who's just a writer with a long name, he's received a death threat. An anonymous 2-page letter was delivered to his home, and it not only threatens Kumvi himself, but 61 other writers, artists, and activists who recently signed an open letter to the chief minister, expressing concern over this rising communal tension in Karnataka. And also, a couple of former chief ministers have been criticizing the BJP, I'm not going to try and say their name, over the same issue. So they've had death threats because, according to the threatener, they are anti-national, traitors to their religion, and they should prepare for their death, which may come in any form shortly.
Wow.
The irony of this is that it's signed Sahishnu Hindu, which means tolerant Hindu.
Oh,
Oh,
Okay.
my goodness.
I don't get it. I think with religion is no matter how nice these religions are portrayed, no matter how we look at them and think, oh, they can't hurt a fly. There's always something. We always have something in them that is, that could easily just turn to becoming violent, becoming toxic, becoming dangerous. It only takes just the one person or persons in these religions to take matters into their own hands.
That's right.
When they're the dominant people in the area, and then someone comes along and challenges them or tries to show them a different perspective, a different worldview. Oh goodness, they don't like that.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
They're
That's where
dogmatic in their righteousness, aren't they?
mhm.
And they think that gives them power over others. Leave others alone.
Mhm. You know,
I'm gonna.
I was just going to say, I find the same thing, even with this current atmosphere of protesting here in Canada, is they've become all self-righteous, of course, and that their demands for freedom are depend entirely upon what they consider freedom to be, and
Yes.
and the fact that they are inhibiting other people's freedoms in many
Yes.
cases, like putting up blockades and whatnot, seems
Yes.
to be lost on them
Yes.
in pushing their own agenda. It's like, well, I want my freedom. I don't care about your freedom. I want
Yes.
my freedom. And,
Yes.
and the same with religion. Thinking that, they're being humble and tolerant and loving and all that kind of stuff. Yet their actions are completely contrary to what those
Yeah.
traits are supposed to be about. It just doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. It's a case of do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned the protesters in Canada, and I've got a Canada issue coming up now because the history professor at Carleton University in Ottawa has received thousands of hateful emails over the past 5 years and abusive voicemails on his office phone. One of them, he opened his computer and he saw a cartoon of himself cleaning a white person's boots because he's a Canadian academic whose work relates to India. Okay, so he's being targeted because he's said some critical things about Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party. I said it. And that has produced this response. He said there's growing violence against Muslims and Dalits, the untouchables. And he's in the untouchable class. He was born into the untouchable class. And he considers himself to have a social responsibility and a moral responsibility to speak out. And what's happened is he's got death threats.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I used to pride myself on being a Canadian because, culturally we could identify as being the ones that always apologize, for the slightest offense that we may or may not have intended, and yet, it's like we're following suit now with the States, where everything is so absolutely polarized and to the extreme. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground. That middle ground is like fading away into a chasm, and that we're just shouting at each other across the gulf, and it's all an intellectual gulf. It really has nothing to do with anything. It's just so silly.
Yep.
So I've got an item here, and I particularly want to get Frank's response to this, because in 2013, Williamstown, Kentucky, issued $62 million of junk bonds to build the Ark Encounter project.
Great.
Now this is a community. This is a community that put that money into it. Right.
Yeah, because they sweetened that deal. It wasn't sweet enough, apparently, by saying that his property taxes, this is Ken Hom, who's baby
Ken
this
Ham,
is, Ken Ham, the Ark Encounter guy. And so they said instead of having to pay property taxes, the money that he would have paid for property taxes can go to pay off that loan. So he was even excused property taxes for the money that he'd been given.
But all that happened, though, because that community believed they were going to benefit financially from the success of this Ark Park.
Exactly.
It was all tourist dollars they were going after, right?
Exactly. Because he did a feasibility study. Ken Ham did a feasibility study saying that the Ark would attract 2 million visitors in its first year, with annual attendance increases of 7% per year.
Right.
Now, the figures have come in. So, since its opening in 2016, up until February this year, it's attracted a total of 4.2 million visitors. That's, 2 years worth of what he claimed would happen.
And by the way, many of those visitors are children.
Yes, they don't pay.
It doesn't bring any money to the park or to
Yes.
the community.
Right.
Yes, yes,
It's just bringing them in on busloads for the indoctrination.
yes, that's right. So I really want to get your friend, what's his name, Frank, on my show.
Dan Phelps. I want to get him there too. He's the guy that produces these numbers that demonstrate the failure of that operation.
Yeah.
I don't know why he hasn't agreed, but I'll work on him. The problem is we don't see each other much.
No.
You know, he lives as far away as the Art Park, which is only 70 miles or what?
Yeah. It's a deliberate travel though, isn't it? Yeah. We were hoping to have Eric Green join us today, and he's actually been a protester at the Ark Encounter.
Right.
But unfortunately, obviously, he's not been able to make it. So let's have a Free Thought Hour show with you and Dan Phelps in the future.
Well,
see if you can twist his arm, because I need him on my show. I did a great show yesterday.
I agree. You need him, and he needs you.
Yes.
And, so we'll see what we can do. I've known him since about 1985, somewhere in that range. So.
Yeah. Well, let's please have him. I hope we can get him. Anyway, before we part, because we've come to the end of our allotted time now, but before we part, I want to give a plug for the show I did yesterday, the Free Thought Hour show I did yesterday with Chris Bartlett, a futurist, but what a fantastic guy. I'm so proud of that show.
It's a good show, and everyone should watch it.
Yes. I've watched it twice already.
Nice. I'll have to get my glams on it there.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go on record that I'm not buying everything he had to say, but very, very interesting, thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Well, I go ahead.
I was just to say, it's in the archive. It's available on this channel that you're watching now, Free Thought Productions. So it's easy to find.
I just wanted to mention that just last week I was at the TED Talks, TEDx Talks in Vancouver, Canada, here, British Columbia, and some very, very thought-provoking speakers and presenters. One of which was Elon Musk, and his contemplation of the purchase of Twitter. And I was I gained a new respect for that man just in what he said, and if he's half as sincere as he comes off, I think there's some good hope for humanity and what he might help bring to the table in terms of giving people a sense of hope.
Excellent.
So,
Fred, would you like to promote your stuff?
Yeah, so I am live streaming this on my YouTube channel, which is Mind Pirate, MINDPYRATE. It is it's 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and I also do the Free Thought Hour at 7 o'clock PDT on Sunday morning. So yeah, come check out my channel, and if you like it, press like and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Esther, would you like to promote your stuff? Where can we see you?
I'm on YouTube as the Afro Humanist. Do live streams on there, and from time to time have videos showcasing Christianity, especially over in Africa. Christianity has become a cancer to the society, in my opinion. Christianity has been, it's whatever the goal was, Christianity has missed the mark. And I actively showcase the evil and the ills of Christianity over in Africa. And so
Yes.
yes, it's you
I'll
you
check
will
it out and
find me.
subscribe. You've got my
Yeah.
vote.
I've just subscribed to you.
Okay.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
just subscribed to your
Awesome.
channel as well.
Thank you.
Great. Frank, do you want to say a last few words?
No.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I'm stuck here in the colonies.
yes,
We're
in the
doing our
Bible
best.
Belt.
We're
In the
struggling. Buckle of the Bible Belt.
Yes, yes. Well, you have my sympathy. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you very much for coming and being my panel. And thank you to Swedish Steve, who's been behind the scenes producing this show.
Awesome.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And thank you to all the
I
audience.
will try to be on next week.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, I should invite you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Say
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.